Welcome to Azure Fundamentals Practice Questions. We are going to cover 50 real exam questions in this video.
Hi everyone, my name is Pradeep Rane. I am a Microsoft certified trainer with 25 years of experience mainly on Microsoft infrastructure. I do consulting on Azure and M365 nowadays. As you can see, got few certificates on that.
Question 1. You need to be notified when Microsoft plans to perform maintenance that can affect the resources deployed to an Azure subscription. What should you use? Azure Monitor, Azure Service Health, Azure Advisor, Microsoft Trust Center. Azure Service Health is the right answer. On Azure Portal under Help and Support you have Service Health where you can find planned maintenance alerts. Question 2. Your company has several departments. Each department has a number of virtual machines, VMs. The company has an Azure subscription that contains a resource group named RG1. All VMs are located in RG1. You want to associate each VM with its respective department. What should you do? Create Azure management groups for each department. Create a resource group for each department. Assign tags to the virtual machines. Modify the settings of the virtual machines. Assign tags to the virtual machines is the right answer. Tags are metadata elements that you apply to your Azure resources. They're key value pairs that help you identify resources based on settings that are relevant to your organization. Question 3. Your company has virtual machines, VMs, hosted in Microsoft Azure. The VMs are located in a single Azure virtual network named VNet1. The company has users that work remotely. The remote workers require access to the VMs on VNet1. You need to provide access for the remote workers. What should you do? Configure a site-to-site, S2S, VPN. Configure a VNet TovNet VPN. Configure a point-to-site, P2S, VPN. Configure direct access on a Windows Server 2012 server VM. You should configure a point-to-site, P2S, VPN. A point-to-site, P2S, VPN gateway connection lets you create a secure connection to your virtual network from an individual client computer. Question 4. You have been informed by your superiors of the company's intentions to automate server deployment to Azure. There is, however, some concern that administrative credentials could be uncovered during this process. You are required to make sure that during the deployment, the administrative credentials are encrypted using a suitable Azure solution. Solution. You recommend the use of Azure Information Protection. Yes, no. No is the right answer. For credentials encryption one should use Azure Key Vault. Question 5. You have been informed by your superiors of the company's intentions to automate server deployment to Azure. There is, however, some concern that administrative credentials could be uncovered during this process. You are required to make sure that during the deployment, the administrative credentials are encrypted using a suitable Azure solution. Solution. You recommend the use of Azure Multi-Factor Authentication, MFA. Does the solution meet the goal? Yes, no. No, as stated earlier, Azure Key Vault should be used for credential encryption. Question 6. You have an on-premises network that contains several servers. You plan to migrate all the servers to Azure. You need to recommend a solution to ensure that some of the servers are available if a single Azure data center goes offline for an extended period. What should you include in the recommendation? Fault tolerance, elasticity, scalability, low latency. Fault tolerance is the right answer. Fault tolerance is when you have a duplicate configuration or system in another Azure region that takes over for the main configuration during an outage. This secondary configuration or system reduces the impact of a localized outage. Question 7. What are two characteristics of the public cloud? Dedicated hardware, unsecured connections, limited storage. Metered pricing, self-service management. Metered pricing and self-service management are the right answers. Metered billing is a billing model in which businesses charge customers based on how much of a product or service they use, like one pays only for the electricity they use. Question 8. You plan to migrate several servers from an on-premises network to Azure. What is an advantage of using a public cloud service for the servers over an on-premises network? The public cloud is owned by the public, not a private corporation. The public cloud is a crowdsourcing solution that provides corporations with the ability to enhance the cloud. All public cloud resources can be freely accessed by every member of the public. The public cloud is a shared entity whereby multiple corporations each use a portion of the resources in the cloud. Answer is the public cloud is a shared entity whereby multiple corporations each use a portion of the resources in the cloud. The public cloud is defined as computing services offered by third-party providers over the public internet, making them available to anyone who wants to use or purchase them. Question 9. You have an on-premises network that contains 100 servers. You need to recommend a solution that provides additional resources to your users. The solution must minimize capital and operational expenditure costs. What should you include in the recommendation? Complete migration to the public cloud, an additional data center, a private cloud, a hybrid cloud. A hybrid cloud is the correct answer. A hybrid cloud is a mixed computing environment where applications are run using a combination of computing, storage, and services in different environments. Public clouds and private clouds, including on-premises data centers. Question 10. You plan to migrate a web application to Azure. The web application is accessed by external users. You need to recommend a cloud deployment solution to minimize the amount of administrative effort used to manage the web application. What should you include in the recommendation? Software as a service, SaaS, platform as a service, PaaS, infrastructure as a service, IaaS, database as a service, DaaS. Platform as a service, PaaS, is the correct answer. Platform as a service, PaaS, is a cloud computing model where a third-party provider delivers hardware and software tools to users over the internet and you only manage the web application part. Question 11. Your company hosts an accounting application named App One that is used by all the customers of the company. App One has low usage during the first 3 weeks of each month and very high usage during the last week of each month. Which benefit of Azure Cloud Services supports cost management for this type of usage pattern? High availability, high latency, elasticity, load balancing. Elasticity is the right answer. Elastic computing is the ability to quickly expand or decrease computer processing, memory, and storage resources to meet changing demands without worrying about capacity planning and engineering for peak usage. Question 12. Your company plans to migrate all its data and resources to Azure. The company's migration plan states that only platform as a service, PaaS, solutions must be used in Azure. You need to deploy an Azure environment that meets the company migration plan. Solution. You create an Azure App Service and Azure Storage account. Does this meet the goal? Yes, no. No is the right answer. Question 13. Your company has an on-premises network that contains multiple servers. The company plans to reduce the following administrative responsibilities: backing up application data, replacing failed server hardware, managing physical server security, updating server operating systems, managing permissions to shared documents. The company plans to migrate servers to Azure virtual machines. You need to identify which administrative responsibilities will be eliminated after the planned migration. Which two responsibilities should you identify? Replacing failed server hardware, backing up application data, managing physical server security, updating server operating systems, managing permissions to shared documents. Replacing failed server hardware and managing physical server security are the right answer, as the cloud provider is responsible for these two things.
Guys, you can take your free practice test today. Practice test link is in the description. I have created a full exam cram with 350 questions where you can practice for this exam. Questions are updated regularly. You can download AZ900 exam PDF also, which is updated in Jan 2025. AZ900 latest outline and cheat sheet is also available for the download. All the download links and practice test links are in the description.
Question 14. You plan to provision infrastructure as a service, IaaS, resources in Azure. Which resource is an example of IaaS? An Azure Web App, an Azure Virtual Machine, an Azure Logic App, an Azure SQL Database. An Azure Virtual Machine is an example of IaaS. Question 15. Your company plans to migrate all its data and resources to Azure. The company's migration plan states that only Platform as a Service, PaaS, solutions must be used in Azure. You need to deploy an Azure environment that meets the company's migration plan. What should you create? Azure Virtual Machines, Azure SQL Databases, and Azure Storage Accounts. An Azure App Service and Azure Virtual Machines that have Microsoft SQL Server installed. An Azure App Service and Azure SQL Databases. Azure Storage Accounts and Web Server in Azure Virtual Machines. An Azure App Service and Azure SQL Databases are PaaS examples. Question 16. What is the first stage in the Microsoft Cloud Adoption Framework for Azure? Adopt the cloud. Make a plan. Ready your organization. Define your strategy. Define your strategy is the first stage. Question 17. Your company intends to subscribe to an Azure support plan. The support plan must allow for new support requests to be opened. Which of the following are support plans that will allow this? Answer by dragging the correct option from the list to the answer area. Select and place. Basic, Developer, Standard, Professional, Direct, Premier. Developer, Standard, Professional, Direct and Premier plans allow new support tickets. Question 18. Your company has data centers in Los Angeles and New York. The company has a Microsoft Azure subscription. You are configuring the two data centers as geo-clustered sites for site resiliency. You need to recommend an Azure Storage Redundancy option. You have the following data storage requirements. Data must be stored on multiple nodes. Data must be stored on nodes in separate geographic locations. Data can be read from the secondary location as well as from the primary location. Which of the following Azure Stored Redundancy options should you recommend? GRS Geo Redundant Storage. RAW GRS Read Access Geo Redundant Storage. ZRS Zone Redundant Storage. LRS Locally Redundant Storage. RAW GRS Read Access Geo Redundant Storage. It meets the requirement and is cheaper than GRS. Question 19. Your developers have created 10 web applications that must be hosted on Azure. You need to determine which Azure Web Tier plan to host the web apps. The Web Tier plan must meet the following requirements. The web apps will use custom domains. The web apps each require 10 GB of storage. The web apps must each run in dedicated compute instances. Load balancing between instances must be included. Costs must be minimized. Which web tier plan should you use? Basic, Standard, Shared, Free. Standard meets all the requirements. Question 20. The company would like to develop a cloud solution by making use of Azure Government. Azure Government can only be used by certain types of clients to develop cloud solutions. Which of the following are the types of customers that can make use of Azure Government in this situation? Answer by dragging the correct option from the list to the answer area. A government contractor from any company. A government entity from any country. A European government contractor. A European government contractor. A United States government contractor. A United States government entity. A United States government contractor and a United States government entity, as Azure Government is available in US only. Question 21. For each of the following statements, select yes if the statement is true. Otherwise, select no. A platform as a service solution that hosts web apps in Azure provides full control of the operating systems that host applications. A platform as a service solution that hosts web apps in Azure provides the ability to scale the platform automatically. A platform as a service solution that hosts web apps in Azure provides professional development services to continuously add features to custom applications. A platform as a service solution that hosts web apps in Azure provides full control of the operating systems that host applications is a wrong answer. A platform as a service solution that hosts web apps in Azure provides the ability to scale the platform automatically is correct. A platform as a service solution that hosts web apps in Azure provides professional development services to continuously add features to custom applications is correct. Question 22. When you are implementing a software as a service solution, you are responsible for configuring high availability, defining scalability rules, installing the SaaS solution, configuring the SaaS solution. You are responsible for configuring the SaaS solution. Rest everything is done by the SaaS provider. Question 23. You have an on-premises network that contains 100 servers. You need to recommend a solution that provides additional resources to your users. The solution must minimize capital and operational expenditure costs. What should you include in the recommendation? Complete migration to Azure Cloud, an additional data center, private cloud, hybrid cloud. Hybrid cloud is the answer as it's the fastest and doesn't require upfront high capital for expansion. Question 24. For each of the following statements, select yes if the statement is true. Otherwise, select no. To achieve a hybrid cloud model, a company must always migrate from a private cloud model. A company can extend the capacity of its internal network by using public cloud. In a public cloud model, only guest users at your company can access resources in the cloud. To achieve a hybrid cloud model, a company must always migrate from a private cloud model is not required. A company can extend the capacity of its internal network by using public cloud is true. In a public cloud model, only guest users at your company can access resources in the cloud is not correct. Question 25. Your developers have created a portal web app for users in the Miami branch office. The web app will be publicly accessible and used by the Miami users to retrieve customer and product information. The web app is currently running in an on-premises test environment. You plan to host the web app on Azure. You need to determine which Azure web tier plan to host the web app. The web tier plan must meet the following requirements. The website will use the miami.wayland.com URL. The website will be deployed to 2 instances. SSL support must be included. The website requires 12 GB of storage. Costs must be minimized. Which web tier plan should you use? Standard, Basic, Free, Shared. Standard meets all the requirements. Question 26. For each of the following statements, select yes if the statement is true. Otherwise, select no. Azure provides flexibility between capital expenditure and operational expenditure. If you create 2 Azure virtual machines that use B2S size, each VM will generate the same monthly cost. When an Azure VM is stopped, you continue to pay storage cost associated to the VM. Azure provides flexibility between capital expenditure and operational expenditure is correct. If you create two Azure virtual machines that use B2S size, each VM will generate the same monthly cost is wrong because they can have different storage. When an Azure VM is stopped, you continue to pay storage cost associated to the VM is right. When an Azure virtual machine is stopped, you don't pay for the virtual machine. However, you do still pay for the storage costs associated to the virtual machine. The most common storage costs are for the disks attached to the virtual machines. Question 27. Is a desktop and application virtualization service that enables the use of cloud-hosted version of Windows from any location. An availability set: Azure Spot Virtual Machine, Azure Virtual Desktop, Azure VM Scale Set. Azure Virtual Desktop is a desktop and application virtualization service that enables the use of cloud-hosted version of Windows from any location. Question 28. Match the Azure services benefits to the correct descriptions. Disaster recovery is, fault tolerance is, low latency is, dynamic scalability is. Fault tolerance is a cloud service that remains available after a failure occurs. For example, a service running on multiple servers can withstand the failure of one of the servers. Disaster recovery is a cloud service that can be recovered after a failure occurs. For example, restoring a virtual machine from backup after a virtual machine failure. Dynamic scalability is a cloud service that performs quickly when demand increases. For example, in a virtual machine scale set, additional instances of the virtual machine are added when the existing virtual machines are under heavy load. Low latency is a cloud service that can be accessed quickly from the internet. For example, the time it takes for a web page to be returned from a web server. Low latency means low response time, which means a quicker response. Question 29. For each of the following statements, select yes if the statement is true. Otherwise, select no. Azure pay-as-you-go pricing is an example of CapEx. Paying electricity for your data center is an example of OpEx. Deploying your own data center is an example of CapEx. Azure pay-as-you-go pricing is an example of CapEx is wrong. With the pay-as-go model, you pay for services as you use them. This is OpEx, operational expenditure, not CapEx, capital expenditure. Paying electricity for your data center is an example of OpEx is wrong. It will be classed as CapEx, not OpEx. Deploying your own data center is an example of CapEx is correct. This is because you need to purchase all the infrastructure up front before you can use it. Question 30. You plan to provision infrastructure as a service, IaaS, resources in Azure. Which resource is an example of IaaS? An Azure Web App, an Azure Virtual Machine, an Azure Logic App, an Azure SQL Database. An Azure Web App, an Azure Logic App, an Azure SQL Database are example of PaaS. Question 31. To which cloud models can you deploy physical servers? Private cloud and hybrid cloud only. Private cloud only. Private cloud, hybrid cloud and public cloud. Hybrid cloud only. You can deploy physical servers on private cloud and hybrid cloud only. Question 32. Match the cloud model to the correct advantage. Hybrid cloud, private cloud, public cloud. Public cloud, no capital expenditure required. With a public cloud, there is no capital expenditure on server hardware, etc. You only pay for cloud resources that you use as you use them. Private cloud provides complete control over security. A private cloud exists on premises, so you have complete control over security. Hybrid cloud provides a choice to use on-premise or cloud-based resources. A hybrid cloud is a mix of public cloud resources and on-premises resources. Therefore, you have a choice to use either. Question 3.3. You have 50 virtual machines hosted on-premises and 50 virtual machines hosted in Azure. The on-premises virtual machines and the Azure virtual machines connect to each other. Which type of cloud model is this? Hybrid, private, public. Hybrid is the right answer because VM are hosted both on-premise and cloud. Question 34. To complete the sentence, select the appropriate option in the answer area. Azure Cosmos DB is an example of offering platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, serverless, software as a service. Azure Cosmos DB is an example of a platform as a service, PaaS. It's from Cloud Database Provider. Question 35. For each of the following statements, select yes if the statement is true. Otherwise, select no. You can create a resource group inside a resource group. An Azure VM can be in multiple resource groups. A resource group can contain resources from multiple regions. You can't create a resource group inside a resource group, so it's number. An Azure VM cannot be in multiple resource groups, so it's no because one resource can be in one resource group only. A resource group can contain resources from multiple regions is right. Question 36. You can assign a to every Azure resource. Blueprint, lock, policy, service endpoint. You can assign a lock to every Azure resource. Question 37. What does a customer provide in a software as a service, SaaS, model? Application data, data storage, compute resources, application software. Application data is the right answer. Rest everything is taken care by the provider. Question 38. You have an Azure environment that contains 10 virtual networks and 100 virtual machines. You need to limit the amount of inbound traffic to all the Azure virtual networks. What should you create? 1 application security group, ASG. 10 virtual network gateways. 10 Azure Express Route circuits. Azure Firewall. Azure Firewall is the right answer. You can configure Azure Firewall destination network address translation to translate and filter inbound internet traffic to your subnets. Question 39. You deploy an Azure resource. The resource becomes unavailable for an extended period due to a service outage. Microsoft will refund in your bank account, migrate your resource to another subscription, credit your Azure account, send you coupon code that you can redeem for Azure credits. Credit your Azure account so you can utilize it again. Question 40. For each of the following statements, select yes if the statement is true. Otherwise, select no. Cloud computing provides elastic scalability. Customers can minimize capital expenditure by using public cloud. Cloud computing leverages virtualization to provide services to multiple customers simultaneously. Cloud computing provides elastic scalability is correct. Customers can minimize capital expenditure by using public cloud is true. Cloud computing leverages virtualization to provide services to multiple customers simultaneously is the right answer. Question 41. For each of the following statements, select yes if the statement is true. Otherwise, select no. A company can extend an internal network by adding its own physical servers to public cloud. A private cloud must be disconnected from the internet. Part of a hybrid cloud is the public cloud. A company can extend an internal network by adding its own physical servers to public cloud is no. You cannot add physical servers to the public cloud. You can only deploy virtual servers in the public cloud. You can extend a private cloud by deploying virtual servers in a public cloud. This would create a hybrid cloud. A private cloud must be disconnected from the internet is wrong. A private cloud exists in cyberspace and is accessed via the internet. Part of a hybrid cloud is the public cloud is correct. Question 42. Match the cloud computing benefits to the correct descriptions. Agility, geo-distribution, scalability. Scalability is where resource can be provisioned dynamically to meet changing demands. Geo-distribution is where applications and data can be deployed to multiple regions. Agility is where applications can be developed, tested, and launched rapidly. Question 43. If a resource group named RG1 has a delete lock, what should be done to delete RG1? Only a member of global admin group can delete it. The delete lock must be removed before deleting. Azure policy must be modified. An Azure tag must be added. The delete lock must be removed before deleting any resource. Question 44. Your company has an Azure Active Directory, Azure AD, environment. Users occasionally connect to Azure AD via the internet. You have been tasked with making sure that users who connect to Azure AD via the internet from an unidentified IP address are automatically encouraged to change passwords. Solution. You configure the use of Azure AD identity protection. Does the solution meet the goal? Yes, no. Yes, Azure Information Protection has user risk policy which forces users to change password. Question 45. You have an accounting application named App1 that uses a legacy database. You plan to move App1 to the cloud. Which service model should you use? Platform as a Service, PaaS. Infrastructure as a Service, IaaS. Software as a Service, SaaS. Infrastructure as a Service, IaaS, as you will have to create a VM and host your application since it's a legacy app. Question 46. Supports synchronization between on-premises storage and Azure storage. Azure File Storage, Azure Files, Azure Queue Storage, Azure Table Storage. Azure Files allows you to sync. It's like your on-premise file server. Question 47. What are two benefits of cloud computing? Enables the rapid provisioning of resources. Has increased administrative complexity. Has the same configuration options as on-premises. Shifts capital expenditures, CapEx, to operating expenditures, OpEx. It enables the rapid provisioning of resources. Shifts capital expenditures, CapEx, to operating expenditures, OpEx. Question 48. What is a feature of an Azure Virtual Network? Resource cost analysis, packet inspection, geo-redundancy, isolation and segmentation. Azure Virtual Network supports isolation and segmentation. Question 49. Enables Azure resources to be deployed close to users. Geo-distribution enables Azure resources to be deployed close to users. Because of geo-distribution, you can deploy apps and data to regional data centers around the globe, thereby ensuring that your customers always have the best performance in their region. Question 50. You need to identify the type of failure for which an Azure Availability Zone can be used to protect access to Azure services. What should you identify? A physical server failure, an Azure region failure, a storage failure, an Azure data center failure. An Azure data center failure. Thank you for watching the video. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel.